Hi.
Hi,
How's
you
it-
did your homework.
Oh, once. Once a year, every year.
Was that the same in school? Was it once a year, every year?
Yeah. And
Well
that,
done.
that was about it, And then I'd borrow a pencil from my classmates and do my best.
And pretend.
Congrats on the book.
Thank you.
And it's nice to be back in Canada. Or
It's so nice. It's always so nice to be back in Canada. I miss home every day.
are there things you got to do? Or you got to do like a Tim Hortons thing or a ketchup chips thing? I don't know.
Oh yeah, ketchup chips for sure.
And they don't have
like a big bag to myself, and no one gets to share.
I wish I had known.
I actually showed up at my hotel room and they had a box of Canadian snacks. It was labeled on the outside, box of Canadian snacks. And I thought, well, what are Canadian snacks? As a Canadian, wondering what identifies us. And I opened it up and it was a coffee crisp and ketchup chips and cheesies and, Smarties. And I was like, oh, those Canadian snacks, right. Yes.
Yeah. Coffee chips, coffee crisp, cheesies, universal healthcare.
Yeah.
These are all just great Canadian.
Good education.
Can you tell me about this thing? Can you tell me a little bit about the Squickerwonkers?
I would love to tell you about the Squickerwonkers. These are cautionary tales for modern day brats. They are old school, kind of Grimm's fairy tale-esque stories that are about a group of vice-ridden marionette puppets who ultimately make a lot of bad choices and come to a lot of bad ends. Also kind of written as like an ode to Edward Gorey. I don't know if you know who that is, but he was I loved Edward Gorey as a kid. And they will be a series of 20 books if I'm lucky enough to write them all.
So you say you read a lot of Edward Gorey as a kid. You also mentioned the Grimms, which were the kind of the German folklorists who ended up collecting a lot of fairy tales from the Black Forest and ended up turning into kind of the fairy tales we know.
Well done.
Thank you. The reason I bring these two up is because these are both, in many ways, the dark side of children's literature.
Yes.
And to me, like the real side of children's literature. Like a lot of these fairy tales like Cinderella and Snow White, they were actually incredibly dark, but we Disneyfied them and stuff like that, right? I can say that. And
I can't.
You can't. I can say that. So why do you think you were drawn to the dark side of children's literature?
Aside from the fact that when I was a kid, I was drawn to the dark side of children's literature, I did not like books pretty much at all across the board. But my grandfather, who was an educator and a very rational man who treated children very rationally, and he treated all children like adults, and nobody should talk down to a child.
Sounds like a joy.
Oh, yeah. He is one of my favorite people in the world. And because as a little girl, my sisters were kind of terrified by that. I loved it. I was like, yes, please don't talk down to me. I know it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I know the world has dark things in it. I've experienced many of them already in my little life. And I felt like what he was saying to me was, I respect you enough to know that you get it. I respect you enough to know that you've seen it. And now I'm going to give you a tool with which to explore it in a safe way. I back in like tribal days, they would tell children stories about being devoured by lions and cougars, and it would scare the hell out of kids. And the purpose of that was so that the kids sort of in their imagination went to sleep and they would dream about what to do in the event of being attacked by a lion or how to evade being attacked by a lion. It was part of their consciousness. And if we protect children from the stories that are dark, then we also don't give them the opportunity to prepare for the darker side of life.
So you mentioned that you've been into the kind of the darker side of fairy tales and the darker side of these things ever since you were a kid, and that's a lovely story about your grandfather. Was writing was always the plan?
Well, it wasn't always the plan. It was just always what I did.
When you were a kid too?
When I was a kid. I mean, when I was in grade 3, 8 years old, I had my first little poem published in the school newsletter, and I was like a proud moment of my young life. And
do you remember it?
I do. It's called My Little Sugar Bowl.
Do you remember when I read it?
I can recite it still to this day. I have a little sugar bowl that's sitting on my desk. It has a lot of sugar in it because I like it that way best. And when I'm alone, all alone in my room, I sneak a few little grains, even though I know very well that it hurts my brains.
Oh my God, Evangeline Lilly reciting her next book, My Little Sugar Bowl. I don't know what I'm more impressed by, that you that's a kind of a sophisticated poem for a kid. Also, that you remembered it. That's maybe the most surprising
I can't believe
thing.
I remembered it. I can't believe I still remember it. I don't remember anything from childhood except that.
Because you were doing political science at UBC, right?
Yes.
And you were writing at the same time. So
I actually, when I was doing political science at UBC, I was studying it because the topics interested me, not because I ever thought I would get a piece of paper saying you can go get a job now. And at one point, I suddenly realized what's what's the thing in my life that I always do when no one asks me to do it, and I always do it without getting paid? And it was writing. And so I decided to apply to the creative writing program at UBC. And I can't remember, like I'm telling you, my brain is a sieve, but for some reason I remember My Little Sugar
My Little
Bowl.
Sugar Bowl.
But I can't remember whether I actually ever got around to applying before I got cast on Lost, or if I didn't ever get around to applying. But if I did, then one version of the story is I applied and I was rejected.
Right.
And ended up getting a job on this little show called Lost.
Yeah, can we play that? Just take a listen.
Yeah, and
Just
just
top, or do you want to pick
let's
it
do it
up?
from the top, and let's just do and just do with that energy again.
Of course, the matches are wet. Everything is wet, which only means it's going to get cold tonight.
Think we're gonna have to spend another night?
I've been here for 36 hours and 17 minutes. I think we'll be here a while. In a couple of days, we're going to be out of food and whatever it is that killed Jack. Is out there.
So that's a little
That's
bit.
so embarrassing.
Oh, come on.
That's my audition.
That's your audition
That's
tape.
embarrassing.
That's Evangeline Lilly's audition tape for the TV series Lost. It would only be embarrassing if you didn't get it.
But we know what was really nice about it is when it first started, I was like, wait, because I thought you were going to play a clip from the show.
Yeah.
I was like, what character is talking? And I was like, oh my God, that's JJ. That's JJ's voice. I haven't heard his voice in years.
And that's you. That's you on that thing too. So like, if I'm not mistaken, you weren't interested in acting at all when you got Lost?
Not really. No, it's a weird story. It's a really long and convoluted story, but the tail end of it is just that I was going out to auditions as an exercise in self-realization. It
Hold
sounds
on.
so swanky.
No.
It sounds so.
So really,
it
UBC,
really-
I'm so surprised by that.
I love being in Canada.
So you were going out acting as an exercise in self-realization.
Yeah, and I was like, it was this very swanky thing that was really like a psychological exercise. And my first audition was in February of 2004,
Yeah.
and in March of 2004, I was in Hawaii shooting Lost.
Oh my God.
Ridiculous. Like that's not supposed to happen, and yeah,
I mean,
was very lucky.
You've talked a lot in the past about like trying to struggle the success you enjoyed on Lost, and I think I'm beginning to understand that, right? Like, 'cause if you never went out to try and be an actor,
Yeah.
If it was some sort of, again, exercise in self-realization, and I kind of chuckled at that, but I kind of know what you mean.
Really?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. I wonder if that's the reason that you said that when you get this huge success on Lost, you can't really enjoy it, if that's the reason.
Well, I've tried to break this down into a soundbite, and I've never been able to. But
It's okay, we're on CBC, you can say whatever you want.
you can ramble.
Yeah, you can ramble. It's okay.
But there is I was raised Christian, and I was raised by a Baptist minister as a grandfather on the other side, very opposite families. And one of the things I realized I really held on to was this Protestant work ethic and the notion that you have to work hard for every scrap of bread you get in life. And that's how you can hold your head high and be proud of what you've done. And I didn't work hard at all at it. It happened. And it didn't happen through blood, sweat, toil, and tears or passion and dreaming for years and years. It just happened. And all of a sudden I was handed, first of all, an occupation that was coveted by many people and wealth and fame and all these different things that, first of all, I had no space or time or interest in fame. But then also even the wealth, I think I felt guilty. I felt like I didn't earn this. I don't deserve this. I don't know why me, and how great, but also it's messed up. Like, shouldn't I have had to work a little harder for all of this?
Is that imposter syndrome?
It's like, I know I'm not alone in it. There's this thing where people are afraid of success and can't enjoy the fruits of it. I don't know what it's called, and then there was more to it than that, but that's an element of it.
I think I know what you mean. I think I've gone through something like that myself, like even doing this job, like I felt like, I don't know if I deserve it. I think other people have worked harder to get it. I think I know what you mean. Right?
I mean, we are socialists.
This episode of Q brought to you by Tommy Douglas. So shortly after Lost, you decide to stop acting altogether, right?
Yeah. So Lost was this, high, heavy drama where pretty much every day for 6 years I had to be either in horror or terror or angst or fear or deep mourning or trembling. I mean, it was just very emotionally taxing. And I wasn't comfortable with the fame. And when it was over, I just thought, this is not for me. I have a lot of cerebral energy. I loved being in university at UBC, like we talked about. I like thinking. I like using my brain. I don't like using my emotions. I am the person who, if like a relationship is a lot of drama, I'm out. I can't cope. So I just thought, well, you know what? I used to be a waitress. I was pretty happy then. What the heck? I don't have to do this. I can do anything. So I decided to walk away I thought forever.
You really thought forever, hey?
I did. I really thought forever. I tucked away and was writing in Hawaii, and nobody in Hollywood could get a hold of me, and I was really out. Like I bowed out. I was not going to keep going.
So if no one in Hollywood could get a hold of you, how did Peter Jackson get you? Because Peter Jackson gets you for The Hobbit, right?
First of all, Peter Jackson can get whatever he wants. I mean, it's like
He bought the CBC last week.
Exactly,
Yeah, I don't know if you know that.
exactly. Believe it or not, he found a roundabout way. There was a producer that he'd worked with on all of his Middle Earth, work, who happened to have worked with my baby daddy like 10 years prior, who happened to still have his number, who reached out to him and said, Peter's been trying to reach your wife for months. No one in Hollywood can get a hold of her. Could you pass on a message, please? Peter Jackson would like her to play a woodland elf in the upcoming Hobbit series or movies.
And were you like, no, listen, I don't act anymore. I'm done.
I was like, oh, what do I do? What do I say? Because The Hobbit was my favorite book when I was about 13. And not just that, I would lay awake fantasizing specifically about being a woodland elf. And I just thought of all the jobs that could come along, nothing could have even touched my resolve to not go back to acting. But I really want to be a woodland elf in Middle Earth. And I also am a diehard fan of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy that Peter made. I think it blew my mind because I was a Tolkien fan who was like, no, don't touch those books. Stay away from those books. But everything he did was exactly how I'd seen it in my mind.
So like, did acting feel different when you came back after that break?
It really did. And I think that it's maybe because I'd become a mother in the meantime.
Really?
My son was 3 months old when I flew to New Zealand to start The Hobbit. And suddenly I had this, center of gravity at home where that was the most important thing in the world. And what happened at work didn't matter as much. So a lot of my anxiety about performance and whether or not because I really thought I was terrible for the first 3 seasons of Lost.
Really?
It was like I really did. I really wanted to crawl in a hole and die whenever I would watch myself on that show, and that would keep me awake at night. And so all of that bullshit just went away because suddenly, all that really mattered was this little being that I needed to love and nurture and take care of.
I appreciate what you're saying there about your kid, but I just think people need to hear that. I think people think that people like you who are in Lost, who are in Marvel movies, don't feel that like, what am I doing here? I'm really bad at this, and no one is telling me. No one is telling me how bad I am.
And
at
nobody
this.
will just tell me. Like I know I'm bad.
know.
Just admit it. Just say it to my face.
Are you still there? Have you got past that?
I actually, I think I'm pretty good at being self-critical and that it's not a blanket. I think I've improved as an actor. I still think I was bad. I look back and I watched the first season of Lost and I think I'm terrible.
We can play the audition tape again. If you
let's
want.
not. Let's not put me through that again. I'm going to crawl under your table and then run away. But I do think I've gotten better, and I've learned from mainly the other actors I've worked with. They've all been my teachers because I didn't have any training or experience to pull from, and it was that's where I learned, was on set.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Q on CBC. I'm joined by Evangeline Lilly. So you might know her as Kate from Lost or the Wasp from the Marvel movies. She's also the author of a series of children's book called The Squickerwonkers. Can you say it with a Scottish accent?
By the way, that was really good. You pronounced it perfectly.
Squickerwonkers?
The Squickerwonkers.
Squickerwonkers. The second one, called The Demise of Selma the Spoiled, is out now. So what does writing give you that acting doesn't?
First of all, it draws on my cerebral energy, not my emotional energy, which is a much more comfortable place for me.
You mentioned that, yeah.
Second of all, I get to do it alone instead of with 150 people around me, talking to me, touching me all day, every day. And I'm an introvert. So it gives me energy instead of draining my energy. And thirdly, and maybe most importantly, I get to polish it before I show it to anyone. And I get to be in control of that polish. And I'm a real perfectionist, and I'm also a bit of a control freak. So acting is this horrible trust fall that makes me sick to my stomach every time I do it, because I have to put something out there that I can't control if it's going to come out perfectly or not. And I can't control what take the director's going to choose. And I can't control how the other actor's going to perform. And I can't control what props are going to be chosen or what lighting's going to be. And all of it's out of my control. Whereas with writing, the whole world, top to bottom, everything is within my control.
So what do you do on, like, that just makes me think, though, like when you're on one of these big Marvel movies with like 114 celebrities, all, you know, like, and you say your problem is, you know, you need this control. What do you do when you don't have any on a movie like that?
Well, so Endgame, for example, is like actually was the most fun, because I know I am the tiniest fleck of dust in this. No pun intended.
Oh, come on.
in this whole production. So then I can let it go. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's not about me. And that's really fun. And then when I go and watch it, I feel like a real fan, because I'm watching something that's outside of me. But when, let's say, like in Ant-Man and the Wasp, when I'm a central character, holy cow, that is so difficult for me to feel like I just can't control any of it. I mean, I can't, it's so outside of me that I don't even get to be the character all the time. I mean, the stunt doubles do a huge amount of heavy lifting. Then there's the CGI doubles that I don't even ever get to see till they're on the screen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of letting go, and I'm not good at that. It's my Achilles heel.
Do you still feel the urge to walk away from acting?
Yes, I do. And I'm very grateful for my career, and I call it my day job because it puts a roof over my kids' heads. It puts food on our table. I am the breadwinner in my family. My partner's a stay-at-home daddy, and we're so grateful for everything that acting has given us. And I just think it's so cool that I've gotten to be a part of these amazing and, you know, kind of, in a way, historical franchises like Lost and The Hobbit and Marvel.
Yeah.
I don't turn my nose up to my blessings. But the truth is that every time I do a job, I think, oh, I don't want to do that again. It's so hard. It's so hard.
Well, then help me out with this. Okay, let's just, I don't know, so you didn't go to acting school and I'm not an actor, so we're going to try an exercise here. I don't know if this is going to work.
We'll both be equally as bad as at it, is what you're saying?
But like, so you know that say that Evangeline Lilly that we heard in that audition tape. Like, go back to that and like pretend you can like grab her by the shoulder.
Okay.
And say something to her before she does that tape.
It's about the people. That's what I would tell her. It's about the people. When I decided to take the Marvel job, so when I took the Hobbit gig, there was very clear reasons. But I was like, and then I'm done after that. You know, I'll go back, I'll dip my toes back in, and then I'm done again. And when I got the call about, you know, they're interested you for this Marvel thing, I had to sit down and give myself a really stern talking to, because I was like, this thing seems like it's not going anywhere. And if you're going to keep doing it, if you're going to keep saying yes to these projects, then you need to make your peace with it. And I didn't know what that would look like or how I would do that. But what it ended up looking like in hindsight was really focusing on the fact that I came into Hollywood thinking this is a den of sin. This is going to be an evil place with horrible people who are just, you know, selfish and greedy and amoral. And I ended up meeting some of the most intelligent, creative, heartfelt, integral people I've ever known ever in my life in this industry. I've been inspired by people in this industry more than almost anywhere else. And even with the fandom, you know, I went into fame thinking fame is bullshit. And as a result, I had no respect for fans who would come up to me and say hi, because I thought, you're buying into some bullshit, man. Like, this doesn't count for anything. I'm just like you. And I had to really come to a place of accepting that there is something real and meaningful in fame, and that people hang their hat on you whether you are the right place to hang it or not. And because their hat's hanging there, you're actually holding on to something that is really delicate and you need to handle it with care. And then when it became about that human being that put some faith in me, then I wanted to give them that faith back. And so by just focusing on the people and not on the kind of illusion of it all or my performance or my abilities, it gave it some real meaning for me and some real heart. Because when I was studying international relations, I wanted to be like a diplomat or an ambassador or a missionary or humanitarian or something. I wanted to help the world. And so I really had to kind of just reframe it and realizing that in some way I'm putting something positive into the world through this profession.
That's beautiful. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks. You too.